This is the Faith Ecology Network Workshop 5, discussing development, use of green calendars, and also sharing successes. Peter Branjerdporn is our first presenter, and I've already outlined his many accomplishments, including being a member of the Faith Ecology Network and developer of various green calendars in his work in as Justice Enabler for Anglican Church of Southern Queensland and other roles. Liz Bastian in 2021 was Blue Mountains Environmental Citizen of the Year. For many years, she's developed herself to helping others live more sustainably. She does this by leading by example and by teaching people of all ages about permaculture and environmental responsibility. And we're very much looking forward to the section of the presentation for this evening.
Basically, I work with the Social Responsibilities Committee to enable all different parts of the church to do justice together. And the priorities of the committee, particularly in the past 5 to 10 years, has been very much around climate justice and environmental care. I work with wonderful people, including Peter Moore, who is also with us today, from Anglia Green and from the Queensland Churches Environmental Network. And we also work ecumenically with lots of other churches and also in the faith space as well, with people from all sorts of different faiths, which is wonderful. You can see in the picture here, that's from St. John's Cathedral, one of our actions. And lots, very, very colourful group of people from around Queensland come together on environmental action. And it's such a privilege to be able to work with people from different faiths. Today, I'm sharing about a part of my work over the past number of years where we came up with various green or seasonal calendars for our work to share. And that gets shared, with the schools, through the chaplains, to Anglican and their staff, and then also through all the parishes and the different organisations that we're part of as well. We also share these resources nationally as well with National Council of Churches and any other groups, including FEN. First slide, though, I want to show is I had a privilege of travelling to Masig, which is also known as York Island in the Torres Strait, last year in May. And one of the first things that I got shown was this amazing poster in the council office. To me, it's just beautiful. It's such a different way of looking at time and seasons, and so much richer than our boring calendars, I think. So I just thought I'd share that with you. And imagine if each one of our church or mosque or synagogue or faith group tried to learn the local season, the local calendar where we live. Wouldn't that enrich the way that we live, immeasurably? In our work, in a very small way, we try to tap into some of that wisdom. So I'm going to go through a few of the examples of the resources that we've been able to share over the few years. This first one, in the Christian tradition, we talk a lot about Lent, the time leading up to Easter. There's a lot of education to be done, and I think that's a big part of this project, is using the seasons of our in our faith calendar to engage people, not just with scripture, but also really practical things. So you can see on the left-hand side, we've got some main themes that we're looking at for that year: food choices, reduce energy consumption, how to save water, how to reduce waste, and also plant life. And then we kind of put various actions, and we try to tie in with different environmental days as well, so that it becomes very on topic. So I believe that was 2017. And then for the next couple of years, we then update the actions, and as we do our work in advocacy and also just really practical stuff as well, we work with secular groups and other groups to see what else is coming up in terms of action, and we try to incorporate that into those calendars as well. The second one here is a couple of years after that. It's also for Lent, but we took a different approach this time, a little bit more reflective. So we went. So the idea of it is 3 panels. This is week 1 of Lent. I think it works out to be 7 weeks. So rather than every day having all these different actions, it can be overwhelming. So I think we found that it was a bit too much from the feedback. So what we did was we focus on a scripture passage. And then the second one is to read a bit of a contemplative kind of passage. And then there's the action panel on the right. And we broke that into 3 parts, kind of levels of engagement that people are ready to go into. So maybe early in the week, they just want to do something pretty simple, pretty where they are. And then the second thing, we step it up to, reduce pesticides, join a group, land care group or a farm, urban farm. And then the third one is actually joining an event that someone else is running. So yeah, it's not about you trying to do everything else, but working with other groups as well. So our voices join together. And then so we made obviously 7 weeks of that. And the reason why they're in that shape is when you break those 3 panels up, it comes on to your screen on your phone and it works really well, kind of like that. And then you kind of flip it. So yeah, we just kind of evolved with time. But you can also print them out as well. For parishes, 1 page would be 3 panels like that. And then the year after that, we worked with the Queensland Churches Environmental Network. A lot of different authors from different faith traditions, different Christian traditions, to come up with 34 days of devotions. And it's a similar idea to the previous one, but in a more more modern form. So it actually ended up being an app which you can download on the App Store, both Apple and Android. Slightly complicated process, and it did take a lot of it's a big project and needed funding for it. But it's a great project which is repeatable. Like we can change the content if we need it to update it for the next year and so on and so forth. Which that project also got made into a book as well. So we printed it out and you can order those again through the Queensland Christian Environmental Network, Queensland Churches Together. But yeah, we try to emphasize big, beautiful photos and again, with those actions of reading, reflecting, and praying. This one you can see by Brooke Prentice, who's an Aboriginal Christian leader. But just quickly, I think there's some good reasons for why green calendars are good. For me, they add to that action contemplation cycle because the people of faith, often we work with a lot of environmental groups, and what we find is that people burn out. People get really excited and get involved in something, and often they run out of energy. To me, the contemplation bit actually gives us energy to act, and in a holistic way. Also, we're seasonal creatures. We try to get away from it as modern kind of people, but we are deep down. We're still seasonal creatures. So it's good to live with the seasons and to think about life in seasons. And the obvious one is in all our faith traditions. There's Lent, there's Advent, there's obviously other faiths have different liturgical and seasonal kind of days and holidays. And it's just natural for people of faith to think like that. And so for us to use it as a way to connect with nature and also to think about biodiversity and how we can care for that, I think it makes sense. Also, it deepens collaboration, particularly when you can engage different authors to come together from different places, geographical or different backgrounds. Adds to that connection across your communities. And it's a very good way to share as well. Often you can even share that across the country or globally, and increases participation in a really, really easy way, I think. Um, the really practical stuff that you will need to think about is who are you targeting? And so, is it going to be digital? Are you going to print it? Or is it going to be both? Because, it doesn't matter how beautiful something is, but if there's no way to get it out to people, and if people aren't going to use it in a way that they're comfortable with, then, there's no point making it. So coming up with a theme is really important. Um, Something that will tie in with where you are. Obviously, tapping into that again, First Nations knowledge is always a good place to start. What they're worried about in your area, um, and what's working with your community of faith is really important. Um, and yeah, thinking about, are you looking at contemplating on scripture, and then, but are you also thinking of some practical actions that you'd like people to do? How many authors are you going to have? Is this going to be, you know, your faith leaders, or are you looking at different age groups to get the diversity as well, different people from different walks of life? Maybe one day we could do an interfaith one. Wouldn't that be cool? Um, yeah, again, thinking about the design, the user experience, how people will use it, and is it shareable? Promotion, how are you going to get it to people? Is it just an email list? Are you going to just, or you actually go around and tell people about it? Often you need a long lead time to let people know it's coming up. Like for that season of creation app, I think we had about 12 to 18 months to plan and to make it, and letting people know nice and early that it's coming up, because often faith leaders are looking for resources. You can't just tell them the week before, because it has to go through different committees to get passed. And as we know, one thing that could be really useful as well is, rather than just sending the resources out, you could do a support group. You could run an online group that uses that resource together, for example, for the first year, and then people know how to use it. Or you can do it just with the leaders. Um, Another really important thing is to make sure there's a way to get some feedback. Um, and as you saw, like each time we produced something, we got all this feedback from people. You don't always get it right, but that's okay. It happens. We've got resources, but also a really good one for interfaith resources is greenfaith.org. They've got all the faiths listed, and lots of resources there.
I have worked for many, many years, decades, with Ro Morrow teaching permaculture. In the last 4 years, I've been the senior lead for Blue Mountain City Council's Planetary Health Initiative. And that's an initiative that recognises that human health is totally dependent on the health of all the other species and the natural systems that make up our planet, and that everything is interconnected, as you all know. So, one element that fits in with what you're talking about for this session, that you'd like me to talk about for this session, is the notion of the stories we tell. And we fully believe that if you change the story, you change culture. And so, um, the questions we've been asking are how do we produce new creation rather than extinction stories? Because so many of our young people are talking about extinction. And just one point, I come from a very long activist background. I trained with Al Gore and gave over 100 climate presentations around Australia. And one question I always asked was, why don't we talk more about the hydrological cycle and its impact on climate change? And I think that people didn't do that because climate deniers, way back in the early days, used to say there's far more water vapor than carbon dioxide, so don't talk about it. So climate deniers would say water vapor, it's all just water vapor, not carbon dioxide. But it is important for everyone to realise that there's twice as much water vapor as carbon dioxide in the greenhouse gases, and it doubles the heating impact of carbon dioxide. And because we've disrupted the hydrological cycle, water that was underground in soil, in vegetation, in living things, each of you is about 60% water, is now cycling in the atmosphere. If we start to show young people and everybody that you can create more life by creating more life, more vegetation, more healthy soil, helping more animals to breed. You can actually take that water vapor out of the atmosphere and bring it back to Earth in a sponge. So there's a real opportunity to tell stories that inspire people to look at how to be more positive. I'll just go back quickly, but we also wanted to look at how we can tell stories that will accelerate and scale systemic change globally in one generation so that we can act with speed. And how can we reduce the risk of disaster so we have the capacity to restore the health of our planet? Because in the Blue Mountains, in the last 5 years, we've been officially declared a natural disaster area 7 times. Once for fire, twice for extreme wet flood events, and then another 4 times for very severe storms. So that takes its toll on people, and then they're always reeling from disaster, not actually doing what's needed to restore the health of the planet. And then we're also asking, how can we collaborate? How can we use our stories to encourage more collaboration locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally? So the logo I developed, if you have a look on the left, it's a spiral going back, the idea of spiraling back to, in our area, we're on Darug and Gundungurra country, so spiraling right back in history to Darug and Gundungurra times and then forward into the future. Each colour represents a different sector of our society. Council in the centre at this point, community groups, education, organisations, businesses, collaborations, and creative initiatives. And that sort of initial sketch became our logo that is one of inclusion. So we've also set up a local government environmental trust, and the idea is, how can we perhaps have a trust that holds money in trust for the community and action for the community so that there's more of a sense of trust in local government and that we can do things that are about restoring the health of our planet. And our general manager says local governments are the land managers of the world. So if we can scale and do things at a local government level, we're the closest government to the people, and we could scale globally very quickly in a generation because we are close to the people and we are the land managers of the world. So that's what we're looking at very much with our storytelling and our actions. We're collaborating for systemic change and demonstrating local government action for planetary health, but with our community, with all sectors of our community. So we've set up, this is just a screenshot of our website that you can go and look at in more detail. We've started Global Planetary Health News, which I'll show you how that originally started. It emerged from communities. We've also set up a pluriversity, and the idea of a pluriversity, that's where you can learn with us, and storytelling can happen in many ways, through written stories, through physical actions. But our pluriversity is about how to grow a pluralist society where innovation and solutions come from all different parts of society working together. We do events and workshops. We have annual events. We held our first interfaith gathering with the Blue Mountains Interfaith Group this year. And we have Skillshare Saturdays where intergenerational sharing happens with the community and people share their hope for the future and positive actions to move forward. Our focus on pluriversity are rights of nature, solutions media, disaster risk reduction, permaculture design for systemic change, circular economy, and making peace. And we do a whole range of projects and make resources available, disaster risk reduction resources, planetary health action resources. We have a centre. The picture there is an aerial view of our Planetary Health Centre, which is the former Katoomba Golf Course. And our goal is to grow a collaborative, solutions-focused culture committed to restoring the health of our planet's natural and social systems and to achieving the highest attainable standard of health, wellbeing and equity for all species worldwide. Now, in terms of our storytelling, the way we tackled this was that we looked at all the different sectors in our community and we hired storytellers for every neighbourhood. And those storytellers went out and very, very carefully chose stories by individuals, communities, businesses, government, and they were all stories that were about solutions, things that people were already doing to restore the health of our planet, to care for country and to work together and strengthen community, essentially, so that we can do all of this together across sectors. And the stories are not about what we could or should do. They're all about what we already are doing, to show people that a lot is happening, and that if you see what people are doing across other sectors, then you can collaborate. You can find someone who's on the same wavelength as you, doing something similar to you, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And we've shared thousands of stories now, and they're written by local people living in that community who are telling it in a way that's not like a council press release, that truly is a story that's more interesting and that empathises with the community. Now, this was a major grant that we had. So we had 6 whole news sites, and they went from Blue Mountains across to Lithgow. So we were working bioregionally, not just in our own council. We were saying we have to collaborate with the next council as well and work together, and that we have to learn more and more about collaboration in this process. And so that's been a very critical part of what we've been doing. This is what they look like. So this is an example of Katoomba area local news. It goes down and down the page. They're really full news sites, like any local news site that you might have. And we have as well, we have calendars, we have community directories, what's on calendars. If you look in the top bar, you can look at stories by sector, individuals, community groups, business, or by region. The global planetary health news is made up of all of these hyper-local news stories coming together to make global news. And the idea is that when we look at the world now, the news is derailing action. It's derailing hope. It's derailing a belief that we can work together. It's combative. It's pushing people to war. What we want to say is that if you actually get the beautiful stories from each community and have them grow and form a global news that's not for profit, that's solutions focused, and that's collaborative from local, hyper-local communities up, you have a whole different news ecosystem. And it's the way news started in the beginning, really, little community by little community. But instead of it being controlled by the mega rich who are controlling the story at the moment, we can change this. So at the moment, our Planetary Health News has all our local stories gathered together. We've started to put in a few research pieces from around Australia and the rest of the world, but we'd love to hear your stories. So if you've got stories of things happening in your community, we would love to share them on our Planetary Health News. And just remember, their story is not about what could or should happen, but what is happening. That's what really gives people hope and shows people how to move forward. We'd love you to subscribe to our Planetary Health YouTube channel. We're growing that because we see that that's the way a lot of young people prefer to get their news and to learn. And so we've got a lot of how-to videos, and we're on a learning curve with this. So I've done 76 videos so far, but we're growing. These are some of the videos. So you can see our most popular one has been the latest research in bushfire sprinkler research. And that actually went off because the people in the Palisades in California started sharing it to show how they could prepare for the next fire. But we're also looking at Tai Chi and Qigong and what that means. We've got a video explaining what that means. We've got an interview about a professor on making peace. We've got a video on our amazing video from our interfaith gathering about creating heroic communities. And it's got the talk given by Sister Jacinta, who's 90-something, 94. Does anyone know 94 or 97 years old? Sister Jacinta. And she did an amazing talk on growing heroic communities. So we believe that to be truly radical is to make hope possible rather than despair convincing. And that's what we want to flood the media with, stories of solutions and of the great things that people are doing, because we are a collaborative species and we do have so many kind, loving people, and we want people to have faith that working together collaboratively is what will ultimately give us the best world. When people are telling us many other things. So if you'd like to know more, our Planetary Health website is there on the left. They're all our local news sites, and we have a number of social media channels as well. So we'd love you to stay in touch.
As we were talking about, telling good stories of things that have happened or are happening to inspire one another, and that's a project that FEN's working on this year, is to tell good stories from different corners, different faith communities. And so we'll probably come back to you, Liz, about how to do that really, really well. But one of the things that we have to do first is actually collect the stories. And so asking the right questions to try and get the stories in our conversation with our networks, odd networks, to begin to collect these stories, but look for people who are willing to share, and also try and give them courage to share. Really, people are looking, people are hungry for this. To me, as a Christian, I think when we share these stories, for me, it makes my faith more real when I share about these stories, because these actions that we do are inspired by our faith. And it helps me to be a better Christian. But also, I think it tells people that people of faith don't just care about leaving this earth and go to heaven or wherever. We care about the earth, and it makes them understand our faith better as well.
Just wanted to say how refreshed and enthused I've been. I'm so grateful that Veronica from our congregation is on the team, and it's been such an inspiration to be part of this today. And I hope that I discipline myself to get into all the rest of them, and to congratulate. There's so much that's happening, and just to capture that, which FEN's doing. I just congratulate you and yeah, share that inspiration, and hope that I can continue to catch the energy and the urge to continue spreading our care for the earth. So thank you for today.
Just that I'm really happy to kind of find this community of kindred spirits, and in the midst of what we're doing in Arosha, I'm just inspired to learn again what we've discussed about the good news stories. There's so many good news stories, and that's where there's so much energy and hope. Thank you for making the space available.
Thank you both so much. Those are beautiful concluding words. As I said, this is the last in our series of 5 workshops on the 10 ways to care. I look forward to joining those of you who've joined us this evening in future workshops.